most of us at this stage can see that, wow, pretty much everything influences our will somehow. And can I say, though, that it doesn't have to. In other words, it's your choice whether those things influence your will. Right? So other people's feelings, they don't have to influence your will. Even your own feelings don't have to influence your will. If you know they're out of harmony with love, you'd be better off choosing using your will to feel them rather than to act upon them. You see? So even your own feelings don't have to determine how you use your will. Because it determines, with your own feelings, you could choose to feel them and not act upon them. You could do that with your will. But to do that has to be a soul-based decision. It's not something you're going to be able to intellectually choose to do. And the way you're going to have to do that is by stop having these belief systems inside of yourself that emotions are really bad and that we shouldn't feel emotion and so forth. So that's a will-based choice to work through some belief systems that have entered you that are false. And then coming out the other end of that, believing that actually it's right to work through my emotions. And then I'll start processing some emotion as a result of that. So everything that happens is coming from the exercise of our will. Everything that we choose to do is coming from the exercise of our will, or through our being easily influenced by the will of others. Now, the majority of us are far too easily influenced by the will of others. Honestly, many of you have already tried this where you've put up your hand and said, I've done this the other day, do you think that was a good idea? And what did I say to you? Now, if I say it's a good idea, what are you going to feel? If I say it's a bad idea, what are you going to feel? Would you have changed your action if I said it was a good idea or a bad idea? Right, probably. So therefore you're easily influenced by your will. Is it a good idea or a bad idea? And you need to determine for yourself in your relationship with God, don't you? See, this is where it becomes imperative that you have this relationship with God, because God has pure motives when it comes to the influence of your will. You don't know the motivations of others, and a lot of times you can't even feel the motivations of others, so you won't know them. And it will only be when you feel the motivations of others that you will know them, right? But God is the person who's going to be able to influence your will the most positively. So it makes sense to understand that actually everything around me is influencing my will, and I need to be selective. I need to be selective. Can you see that? Okay. So let's look at the selectivity now of the exercise of our will. What are we going to do with the exercise of our will? How do we make positive changes with the exercise of our will? Well, it's quite simple. Remember the definition of sin? What's the definition of sin? So everything that's out of harmony with love or truth is a sin. And everything that's in harmony with love or truth, not a sin. Right? So the definition of sin, we understand the definition of sin. So all we need to do is remember this word, sin. Right? Soon as I do anything that actually validates sin in any way, that actually goes along with sin in any way, right, my will is going to be affected negatively. Or to put it more precisely, as Mary said it, acting in disharmony with God's love, God's truth, or God's laws causes destruction of love-based will. Now that's in your notes, so you don't need to write that down. So that was acting in disharmony with God's love, God's truth, or God's laws causes the destruction of a love-based will. And think about that and go, gee whiz, I'm destroying a love-based will quite frequently, right? In my day-to-day actions, you know. And that's a problem. If it's like, how can I make progress while I'm actually taking actions to destroy the love-based will in the process? You obviously don't want to do that anymore, right? So, if we go and think about thoughts, words, beliefs, actions that we had all written down on the board just before, right? And perhaps what I should have done is left it there and gone onto this board, but it's all done now. It's the choice I made. It's gone. And so if we think about our thoughts, well, you can have thoughts that are sin, and spending your time thinking about those particular things is going to influence your love-based will. You can have feelings that are sin, and spending your time like acting upon those feelings is going to destroy your love-based will. Or believing those feelings or accepting them as true is going to destroy your love-based will. You can have desires, intentions, if they are sinful, they're out of harmony with love and truth, they will destroy your love-based will. Somebody else could have them and they talk to you about them and you listen to them, now that's destroyed your love-based will. So what have we learned from that? That the world is geared towards destroying your love-based will. Because most of the time, the world's definition of love is out of harmony with love. So the world is geared towards destroying your love-based will. All right, so this is a problem, right? But that's how we develop our will negatively. So instead of writing that down, I'll just say here, negative development of will, quite simple, choosing sin. So how do we develop our will positively? Isn't it pretty much the opposite of that? Yes, it is. So positive development of will don't sin. Now, of course, there's a lot more we need to say about that, but can you see the basic principle? It's pretty basic, isn't it? If we choose to do things, or choose to think of things, or choose to believe things, or choose to act upon things, or choose to remain in the feeling of things that are out of harmony with love and truth, then we're desiring sin. And if we desire sin, then our will is going to be headed down the track of being unloving and therefore not positive. The net consequence is going to be pain and suffering, and the outcome is going to be not very good for us. It's going to be very unhappy. That's what we're choosing to do. Robert?
So does that mean, unless I engage a positive development of will, I'm automatically going to be doing the other one constantly? Because the sin's already in me and I'm just going to be acting.
Correct, and this is our problem. This is why we have a tendency to sin. The tendency to sin comes from the fact that we have a whole heap of emotions within us that are already predisposing us to sin, right? These emotions coming from our family of origin, our society and so forth, the world's definition of love being imposed upon us from the time of our first conception to onwards. And then, of course, also imposed by our subsequent choices, which are also based upon many of these unhealed emotional states. And so we then have a predisposition towards sinning. And that's why the Christian view is actually correct on that matter. There is a predisposition for sinning inside of the soul, but it's only because the previous sin of the previous generations hasn't been dealt with by the persons involved. And it can be dealt with. It can be released, right? So this is a problem. This is a problem, and what I feel is that demonstrates the importance of using your will, because it doesn't just affect you, right? And this is what I feel most people think. How often do you hear this basic underlying statement from the world? I'm not hurting anyone. Man, there's people who do not understand the exercise of their will when they say things like that, right? Because the reality is, every choice, decision you make, every feeling you hold on to, everything you choose to do that's out of harmony with love and truth, every sin you engage does, even if you think it primarily just affects you, it does affect other people. It affects the children of the next generation as well. This is what we need to learn about will, that it doesn't just affect us. How we use our will doesn't just affect us. The hells of the spirit world are littered with people who believed their life wasn't harming other people. That's why they're in the hells, because they have a false belief that you can make a choice out of harmony of love and not harm somebody else. You can't. Yeah.